Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 21 of the Vuelta a España, which means it's the last and final stage of this year's 3 Grand Tours, finishing up, of course, here in Spain. Today's episode brought to you by Lupine Lights. Lupine Lights, the finest lights I've ridden throughout my career, and I've been riding them since 2019. With Bluetooth connectivity, of course, means you can change your headlight setting anywhere on your person. And of course, with the app, you can adjust all the lights to work with your battery power, so you make sure you get the most out of your battery, the most out of your lights, and the most out of your ride home. Now, if you're looking to save 24% on your next purchase of Lupine Lights, make sure you use the code LupineLights24, and that code ends after today, because when the Vuelta is said and done, well, you wake up tomorrow and so is that code. So if you're looking for a pair of Lupine Lights, make sure you use the code tonight. Now, what do I want to talk about in today's stage 21, the individual time trial? Well, we got a ton of battles to do here in the top 10 general classification. And of course, we have some time trial specialists that are going to want to win on this last day of the Vuelta a España. Remember, if you're a time trial specialist like Stefan Küng, my man Victor Campenaerts, and of course Brandon McNulty, once you start getting into these bigger mountains, having to fight through all these bigger mountains here at the Vuelta a España, if you're Camp and if you're Stefan Küng, well, you've been dreaming of this last day. You thought about the first day individual time trial that Brandon McNulty won, and then of course you're thinking about this last one. So if you didn't win the first, you've been racing for 3 weeks. This is the day you want to shine here if you're Victor Campenaerts, and certainly if you're Stefan Küng. When the racing starts, we're going to go fast forward a little bit, and we're going to find a Feeney on the ramp. When we find the Visma bike rider leaving the ramp, he's running a double disc. They're still running that crazy big old helmet too. And Visma bike haven't won an individual time trial throughout the 24 season. Certainly nothing I've covered up here on the Butterfly Effect. But as a Feeney leaves the ramp with his double disc, front disc on there, they're literally trying to reinvent the wheel here, the front wheel. Guys, we rode double disc back when I was a kid, and everyone knew they're too dangerous to ride. So when we see a Feeney out there on the course and he's in the TT position and he's getting blown all over the place, the bike's moving left and right and all over. We see him going over the speed bumps, he's getting back into position, but the bike's always moving all over. As we see the Visma bike cross the line, he's going to be in the hot seat 10 seconds up, and this is going to be the first of the time trial specialists crossing the finish line here on today's last and final stage of the Vuelta a España. He doesn't need to stay there too long because it's my man Victor Campenaerts out on the course. He's flying around the course, and as he comes across the finish line, he's going to come across 12 seconds faster than the time there of the Visma bike rider, Feeney. That means that TT bike and that TT helmet and that TT front wheel has not won an individual time trial in one of the Grand Tours or the 24 season. It's about time to take that front disc wheel off before someone crashes and gets hurt, don't you think? Well, Victor Campenaerts, he's up there sitting in the hot seat now, but now we're going to start looking back and see some of the other riders leading the ramp. And it's Brandon McNulty. He's in the Stars and Stripes jersey. He is the first rider early here in this stage 21 that you see really flying through all the corners. The American rider in the Stars and Stripes jerseys looking fantastic. Then we start finding some other riders out on courses. Mario Schmid is setting a blazing time, and he's going to come across this finish line here to set the fastest time, 8 seconds faster than my man Victor Campenaerts. He's in the hot seat, and we go back and find Brandon McNulty, but he's dropped time all over. Looks like he's got a scar on his knee, and when Brandon McNulty crosses the finish line, he's going to have his knee all bloody, and he's going to lose 3 minutes. So the U.S. Pro individual time trial champion is not going to win 2 individual time trials here at the Vuelta a España. Now all of a sudden we find Filippo Baroncioni as the UAE Team Emirates rider. They didn't show him coming across the finish line, but they show him dicing it up through the corner near the finish, and he's in the hot seat 3 seconds up. So with this time, UAE Team Emirates, Filippo's the surprise leader right here on stage 21. He won't be in the hot seat too much longer, but we got to see some of our older stars cross the line, because it's Hessing up here, Robert Hessing from Visma bike, that's coming across the finish line. He's waving to all the fans right now because this is going to be his last finish of the Grand Tours as he's retiring at the end of the year. Then we see leaving the ramp, it's Stefan Küng, FDJ. He has been backing off on some of the road stages in the last 2 and 3 mountain stages to save a little bit of legs here for this individual time trial, so he's made it known he wants a good showing. Stefan Küng leaves the ramp, he's going through the first corner, and he's pedaling through the corner. You see how it's a right turn there, and he's got his right pedal all the way down? That means he's pedaling through the corners. I know it's a still picture, not video, but that's what it means. Stefan Küng's coming out of the corners and directly hopping standing in the TT position. He is flying out there, and every corner he's dicing up. If it's a wider corner, he's got the pedals rotating through with power on it all the way through the corners, and in the TT position looking fine with his arrow bars up there and the bull horns with his TTing up. Look how low the bull horns are just below him. So this is a big guy, and he's got to put out big time power. He's powering along the course, and he's going to come through with the fastest time, 43 seconds up on the time of Filippo Barancioni there from UAE Team Emirates. Filippo didn't even have time to get in the hot seat. Officially, he did go up there, and then we see him waving, but it's time for Stefan Küng to warm down. He's not going to go to the hot seat because Stefan Küng's already thinking about the multiple other time trial races he has coming up later in the season, so he's warming down right now, and this is the last and final stage of the Vuelta a España. Caught me by surprise, but when you think about it, it's an intelligent decision. With time trial championships, with world time trial championships coming up, he's got a ton of work still to do, and his form's clearly on form because he just went 53 seconds faster than anyone else here on the Vuelta a España. But we got one other rider out there that's before we get into the final GC battle, and that rider is going to be Matteo Cattaneo, who was flying out on the course. But take a look as he's cutting through the island here. This is a left turn with a roundabout followed by left, and he's realized probably in pre-training that it was faster to cut the islands here. And even though the police officer is sitting between the two islands and has been sitting between the two islands throughout this course, because I could show you pictures where he was, but as we see Cattaneo there splitting the islands, the officer's jumping out of the way and just barely avoids getting hit there from Matteo Cattaneo. Cattaneo's still flying, but he'll give a little shot back over his shoulder, the left side, to look at the police officer. He's up, so Matteo Cattaneo still continuing. He'll cross the line second on today's stage, about 44 seconds back from the time of Stefan Küng. Now, when we go back, we're starting to look at the top 10 of the general classification, getting ready to leave the ramp. But before we get into the top 10, it's Sepp Kuss, the American rider who won the Vuelta a España last year in 2023 for Jumbo-Visma. Now he's riding for Visma Lease bike, sitting 13th on the general classification. When Sepp crosses the line, he's 3 minutes down, so you know he took today's stage easy. Or did he? Let's back it up just a hair, and we'll see that the Giro great big time trial helmet that Sepp Kuss was wearing, he started with the visor on, tossed the visor, and looked like he was sweating all over the place. So it didn't look like it was an easy ride for Sepp Kuss, but he loses 3 minutes, and this will end the 24 Vuelta a España for Sepp Kuss. Hopefully Sepp Kuss finds some form again, some amazing form that we saw in 2023, and he finds it again for 2025. But right now we got to go into the top 10. Now, before the stage started, we had a couple battles here. Would Primoz Roglic be able to win the individual time trial today? Was he going to be healthy enough to win the individual time trial today? Can Ben O'Connor keep his second place because he has Moss directly on his heels back there at about 9 seconds? So second and third is certainly a battle. We look a little bit further back, fifth and sixth. Well, that's David Gaudu, the FDJ rider. His teammates in the hot seat, Stefan Küng. But Gaudu's got a battle because he's got Skilmos behind him, and they're 30 seconds splitting apart from each other. We go a little bit further back, and we'll see that, of course, Lipovets and Mikel Landa, they got a little battle because they're close on general classification of about 31 seconds. And if I want to stretch the possibilities here, well, Lipovets could possibly take the white jersey away from Skilmos because he's about 1 minute and 8 seconds back from Skilmos. So if Lipovets had an amazing ride, and remember, he's unproven in the general classification for Grand Tours because he's never finished one. So if he can pull back 1 minute 8 seconds, 1 minute 9 seconds there in Skilmos, he could take the white jersey too. So we do have some exciting stuff left with the general classification hopefuls. We'll see Carlos Rodriguez leave the ramp. When he crosses the line, he's going to be 1 minute and 18 seconds back. So he had a solid ride. The next rider going to leave the ramp, well, that's going to be Sivakov. As Sivakov leaves the ramp, he'll cross the finish line 1 minute and 45 seconds back from the time of Stefan Küng. So it's solid, but it's not going to move him up or down any places on the general classification. Both 9th and 10th will stay on the GC position the same way they started today's individual time trial. Now we start going into Mikel Landa leaving the ramp. This is a battle to come for Pseudo Quick-Step there against Lipovets, as I was telling you. But Mikel Landa will cross the line 2 minutes and 22 seconds back from the time there, Stefan Küng, in about 42nd place. That won't move him up on the general classification, so means Lipovets, when we find him, what's his time looking like? Well, Lipovets had a solid time out there. He'll cross the line 1:10 back from Stefan Küng, 14th on today's stage, so he had a solid ride, but it's not going to be enough because Skilmos was out there flying on the pedals for Lidl Trek, and as Skilmos crosses the line 1:10 back from Stefan Küng, 14th right now at this moment on stage 21 of the Volta a España, it means he was flying. So what was happening out there? The David Gaudu. Gaudu was falling apart early in the stage, losing about 45 seconds there to Skilmos, and then Gaudu's going to cross the line 2 minutes and 15 seconds back to be 40th on the stage. That means that Skilmos is going to jump over into 5th place of the general classification over David Gaudu there from FDJ. Now, what's happening up there with Carapaz? Well, we see Carapaz left the ramp, but once he got out there, well, he protected his time, crossed the line 1 minute and 33 seconds back, 20th on the stage. Okay, what was happening between 2nd and 3rd, the battle up there? Well, Moss was already dropping time early in the stage of about 8 seconds up there to Ben O'Connor. When we find Primoz Roglic after he left the ramp anyways, he was doing solid time throughout the course, and he's up on the time of Ben O'Connor, but Ben O'Connor's, more importantly, is up on Enric Mas as the time keeps stretching up to about 13, 14, 15 seconds there to Mas. We know Ben O'Connor's looking fantastic to finish a podium here at a Grand Tour, and second nonetheless. We start looking at Mas crossing the line. He's going full gas. He'll finish 1 minute and 33 seconds back in 20th position of Stefan Küng. The next rider to cross the line, well, that's second on the general classification. Ben O'Connor comes blowing through the line, looking fantastic in the TT position. He's 105 10th at this moment, because there's still one more rider out on the course. His name's Primoz Roglic, and he's wearing the race leader's red jersey. Was setting fine splits throughout the course, but we knew right away that Primoz Roglic's time was not fast enough to dislodge Stefan Küng up front, who started celebrating already as Primoz Roglic came around 300 meters to go. Stefan Küng knew it was time to celebrate because he's going to win his first Grand Tour stage here on stage 21 of the Volta a España. Primoz Roglic across the line, 31 seconds back in second place on today's stage. But more importantly, he protects the race leader's red jersey, throws up the number 1 finger there, waves to the fan, and after that, it's time to celebrate a 4th victory here at the Volta a España. Won in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Now it's 2024, and Primoz Roglic holds the records. Holds the records there with Roberto Heras back in my day, the racer there, the Spaniard. But guess what? Roberto Heras actually holds the record because just like they do here in the GC races, they can't let it be a tie, even though both riders have 4 victories in the Volta a España. So they're going to go back to see who has the second best victory. Roberto Heras has finished 2nd on the general classification. Primoz Roglic has only finished 3rd on the general classification. So Roberto Heras still holds the record here at the Volta a España. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty technical details here after the Volta a España has finished in 2024. But Primoz Roglic, first on the general classification, protects the race leader's red jersey. Ben O'Connor stays 2nd. We see Enric Mas up there to round out the podium for this year's 24 Volta a España. When it comes to the jerseys, none of them changed today. Jay Vine holds on to the KOM jersey. The sprint leader's jersey, well, Caden Groves, you see him crossing the line here in the picture. He holds on to the green jersey here with 3 individual stage victories at the 24 Volta a España, and the team classification is going to go to UAE Team Emirates. Now, when I dissect the race here at the 24 Volta a España, when I'm talking Bora Hansgrohe, what impressed me the most is Primoz Roglic is not 100%. He has not been 100% through this 24 Volta a España, and he still found a way to win. This Slovenian, who wins the 3rd Grand Tour here of the 24 season for Slovenia, that means Primoz Roglic has got the 1, and Tadej Pogačar, you know, has the Giro and the Tour de France. So Slovenia, all the fans right now are cheering for 100% as Primoz Roglic is sitting up there on the podium celebrating big time. But when we dissect the tactics, that more importantly, Bora Hansgrohe winning with Primoz Roglic not 100% shows just how good the Slovenian is. He crashed multiple times at the Tour de France. He came in here suffering and still was capable of winning. The problem is, when you go back to that stage 6 and you look at Ben O'Connor gaining so much time, Remember, I kept telling you guys in the stages after that, I wonder just how much time Bora Hansgrohe were really going to give Ben O'Connor in that break going up the road before the panic and before the alarm bells went off and they started chasing. If no other teams had chased at all, if Ben O'Connor had gained even more time on that stage, could he have won this year's Vuelta a España? Primoz Roglic had good days, he had bad days, but the Slovenian still managed to be able to win the general classification here, which is impressive. And honestly, most of the time when I'm looking at Primoz Roglic, he always seems to be hurt or injured throughout the season. But if the Slovenian could come into top form, well, we know he can battle with Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, and Remco Evenepoel, no doubt about that. So next year in the 25 season, when we get into the Grand Tours, hopefully Primoz Roglic is coming in 100%. Hopefully Bora Hansgrohe are not playing those games that we saw on stage 6 that could have cost Primoz Roglic the Vuelta a España this year. And hopefully all of our main hitters, Remco Evenepoel, Tadej Pogačar, and Jonas Vingegaard are on 100% form. So we could see that battle at next year's Grand Tours. Most likely the Tour de France, I would assume all 4 riders will be at. But if not, maybe it'll come at the Giro d'Italia. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect at some point in time. See you then.